The Endangered Species Act was a major turning point in the history of American conservation, created in response to the rapid elimination of American wildlife. As stated by the actual text of the act itself, it was created to protect the species of fish, wildlife, and plants that are of aesthetic, ecological, educational, historical, recreational, and scientific value to the nation and its people. The act, passed almost unanimously in 1973, gave government power to protect species that are endangered of becoming extinct and disappearing forever. This act protects the future of wildlife abundance and diversity, as well as other connected aspects. Please listen to this brief history of animal diversity in America and why the Endangered Species Act is such a significant turning point. When the first European colonists entered the American wilderness years ago, their eyes met with millions of acres of forest, with pristine lakes, rivers, and with streams full of fish. These men and women saw these resources as commodities that would supply them with easy money, as these resources were in high demand in their homelands back overseas. Without the Endangered Species Act or any other form of restriction, they began to harvest these resources, sending them out to their parent countries, France, England, and Spain. The American beaver was one of the first species to severely decline due to unrestrained hunting. Its pelts were very popular for hats, and the colonists killed and sold large numbers of these animals, until beavers in that part of America had almost disappeared. Expansion of America led to similar scenarios. American bison was another species to quickly decline. People hunted these animals relentlessly, and even today they are a fraction of their previous populations. These stories were repeated with salmon, steelhead, and many other useful animals that America saw as unlimited and free for taking. They didn't care about how fast they ate up their resources or how much they used. These are species, however, that are not tales from the past. There are still bison on our plains and salmon in our waters. This is not to be said of the extinct passenger pigeon, which was hunted, used, and exploited until its complete extinction in 1914. These practices continued into the late 19th century and early 20th century, when national parks were established by Theodore Roosevelt and others before him, such as Ulysses S. Grant and General Henry Dana Washburn, who created the first park, Yellowstone. These men were the first to awaken America to the fact that its resources were not unlimited. Roosevelt, with the help of John Muir, Gifford Pinchot, and John Wesley Powell, established hundreds of parks and refuges where hunting and fishing was regulated or prohibited. But national parks are not sufficient to protect most endangered species. For example, the pesticide DDT all but wiped out many types of raptors and shorebirds, despite the existence of protected areas. It took several decades before the United States government realized that more support was needed to protect them. Initially, the government established the Endangered Species Preservation Act in 1966. This proved inadequate, so they established the Endangered Species Conservation Act in 1969, and finally, the Endangered Species Act in 1973. This act strengthened efforts to preserve endangered species. It also gave the government the ability to work with other countries to protect endangered species elsewhere in the world. The key features of the plan are a listing system where species are determined to be threatened, or more significantly endangered, based on scientific data, protection against harming, harassing, or capturing any endangered species. This also prohibits commercial development from making harmful modifications to the species' habitat. Recovery planning to help restore an endangered or threatened species, and ultimately remove it from the endangered species list. Immediately, several species started to recover. Both the peregrine falcon and bald eagle, severely diminished by the use of DDT, began to recover. Today, the bald eagle has improved and has been downlisted from endangered to threatened. The peregrine falcon has significantly recovered as well. Another species at risk, the grizzly bear, doubled its population in Yellowstone National Park alone. Among the significantly recovered endangered species are the black-footed ferret, which was once thought to be extinct, the gray whale, which has also almost doubled its population, the sea otter, which was hunted for its pelts during the fur trade, and the gray wolf, which is no longer on the endangered species list. The Endangered Species Act, said to be the nation's strongest environmental protection law, has contributed to the steady recovery of at least 100 species. So why are endangered species so important? Well, scientists claim endangered species are important because of their overall value in the ecosystem, in science, in beauty, and even in medicine. They claim that these species matter in the ecosystem because their extinction can trigger chain reactions that bring down other species as well. For example, beavers support a large variety of wildlife. They build dams, which create ponds, resulting in habitat formation and support for an abundance of wildlife, including 43% of endangered species. Medically, many plants have already gone extinct that may have provided cures for diseases such as cancer. Only a fraction of the known species of plants has even been tested for medicinal qualities. As a result of commercial development and resource depletion in the form of clear-cut logging and many other things, many species constantly disappear that we have not even discovered yet. Despite these facts, others argue that the Endangered Species Act can be quite harmful to the economy. When the spotted owl was put on the endangered species list in 1990, it triggered a shutdown on the logging of millions of acres of forested land. It also cost tens of thousands of jobs, and it is expected that the recovery from this shutdown will cost up to $20 billion. Today, despite the millions of acres reserved for its benefit, the spotted owl species is not yet entirely stable. Many people are in opposition to this act because of these reasons. Roads are stopped, dams are shut down, and commercial development is halted because of endangered species. Congress sympathized with the problems developers were facing, and in 1978 created what is referred to as the God Squad, an entity that can allow certain projects to be built as long as the potential benefit of the project outweighs the loss. On the other side of things, there are those who think that the Endangered Species Act should be strengthened. They claim that the Endangered Species Act only has a 1% success rate. It is true that only 20 of the 1,500 or so endangered species have been officially declared recovered and removed from the endangered species list. They point out that many species go extinct while being considered for listing, and some have even gone extinct while protected on the Endangered Species Act. They think that if we are to fulfill the purpose of the Endangered Species Act, it needs greater control and priority. So who is right? Well, obviously this is a matter of opinion. Jan Cirkula, as chairman of the Physicians and Scientists for Responsible Application of Science and Technology, stated, "The world environmental situation is likely to be further aggravated by the increasingly rapid, large-scale global extinction of species. In a slow extinction, various balancing mechanisms can develop. No one knows what will be the result of this extremely rapid extinction rate. What is known for sure is that the world ecological system has been kept in balance through a very complex and multifaceted interaction between a huge number of species. This rapid extinction is therefore likely to precipitate collapses of ecosystems at a global scale. This is predicted to create large-scale agricultural problems, threatening food supplies to hundreds of millions of people. Let the listeners decide for themselves if endangered species are important to protect or not." The Endangered Species Act was created to preserve America's endangered and threatened species, and was established in 1973. Its efforts have helped stop the decline of endangered species so that their values of medicinal, scientific, agricultural, ecological, and economic importance do not disappear. Whether good for our economy in the United States, or world, or not. And although it is a highly controversial issue, it has played a very powerful and important role in turning the tides of overexploited and diminishing species.